Welcome back to Gun&ShotTV. This is Chris, and you guys know that I love a deal. I kind of collect guns, obviously, but I'm going to collect a collector. I tend to mainly collect things that I can find a real good price on. I had always kind of been interested in black powder. I've got a couple black powder revolvers that I have the stuff for, but I've fired like maybe once or twice. I always thought the idea of a modern inline muzzleloader would be neat, but I didn't really want to pay a lot for it. I probably will never hunt with it. It's just something to have to say I have one. So, lots of other guns came up in the meantime. But if you guys have a Gander Mountain near you, right now they're all going out of business. And my one started going out of business really early because it was one of the new stores that just opened and now they're closing it. So they started clearing stuff out before the other stores even were announced they were going to be closing. So we're farther ahead in the clearance cycle. So right now I think black powder is at 60% off, so anything to do with black powder. And up until this week there was still guns sitting there. Now it's probably a month or two back I went in and everything black powder was I think 40% off, 30 something. And I was looking at the guns they had some complete kits, but they also had a couple of just standalone rifles. So I was looking and they had this CVA. And I didn't really know much about CVA. I mean, I know they're a modern inline black powder maker. They're imported guns and stuff. So this is actually a buckhorn Magnum. I looked it up, and apparently it was a cheap starter model. It was about $150 normally. Well, Gander Mountain had already put it on clearance because it's been discontinued. And they had it for $100, and then it was clearanced on that because the store was closing. So I got it for, it was $70 out the door. So I put a sling on it, and that was really all I did to it. It's a modern inline, which means you use a shotgun primer, and you pretty much load your powder, load your ball or your slug, and then put a primer in there. When you pull the trigger, the bolt flies forward, hits the primer. It's kind of like an open bolt machine gun in a way, and sets it off. There are some better ones than this that are easier to get the plug out and clean and stuff, but I figured for $70 I really couldn't go wrong. So I spent a couple extra dollars. I got a jug of powder, and I had a few accessories already, but I needed, like I said, the powder. I think that was like $20-30. They didn't have anything good besides Pyrodex. Pyrodex is corrosive. It's the same as many other black powders. You got to clean it right away, all that stuff. But it was reasonably cheap. I think I spent $20 on it because it was on sale. I got a starter. I got powder measure, some primers, some random stuff. The big expense I saw was you have to buy bullets. So I'm cheap. I think you guys know that. I cast my own bullets. So I looked into casting for a 50 cal, and I found there's this, Lee calls them reel, which means rifling engraved at loading. It's kind of like a giant slug, and the rifling's kind of got this weird angle pitch to it, and that lets the rifling kind of like scrape away the fouling, supposedly. But the mold to cast these, to cast 2 at a time, was $20. A box of 20 bullets was $20. So I figured for the cost of the mold, as long as I shoot the gun 20 times, I'm money ahead buying the mold. Now I bought this, and then I found out that Lee makes one where it's 2 molds in one. It's got one of these real bullets, and one is a 50 caliber ball. Had I known that, I probably would have bought that one just to have some variety and be able to do other stupid things. But these actually shoot really well. The gun doesn't seem to foul out. To some extent it can be your powder choice. I've heard that new, I think it's called, what is it, Buckhorn 209. There's a new powder, and it supposedly is much more like smokeless powder. Doesn't foul out and stuff like that. But of course they didn't have any of that for cheap. So we got what we got. We got the Pyrodex. I'm going to go grab some stuff. Actually, I pretty much have everything here other than some lube. Now you can use, they make boar butter, they make all kinds of lubes for these. I'm just going to use some Crisco, so let me go grab some Crisco, we'll load this thing up and we'll shoot it. Okay, so I've got everything we need to commence the loading. First, you're going to take your black powder. Always put it in a powder horn of some sort. Reason being, if the powder were to blow up while you're doing something with it, if you're pouring from a smaller container, there's less to blow up in your hand. So this is a powder measure. Black powder is measured by volume, not by weight. So you just set it to wherever you want it to go. It's in tens of grains down here. Now, the gun can take up to 150 grains of black powder. I'm going to use like 75, and pretty much you're just going to run your powder horn. Now, this stupid powder horn, there's something shitty with the valve. I got it at the bargain cave at Cabela's years ago for a different project, and for some reason you have to keep pushing the button to get it to flow. I don't know. I think it's just shitty. I took the valve apart, and it's just really crappy plastic, and there's not much I could really do to fix it. Okay, so now I've got some powder spilled everywhere. What you do is you take your spout and you turn it. It shaves off the excess powder. So now we know we're exactly where we should be for where this measure is set. Now we need to put that powder in the barrel of our gun. To do that, we just invert the measure, tap it a few times. Every time that I don't take my time with this step, the powder bridges and it doesn't go in the barrel. So take your time, let it kind of sit there for a minute, make sure all the powder goes in the barrel. The next step is we have to put in our bullet. Now, like I said, you can use whatever lube you want, but you do want to use a lube. Always put some sort of lube on your bullet, unless, I think you can get away without it if you're using plastic coated bullets that are in a wad. But I'm just going to put some grease on this puppy, maybe rub a little in the barrel before I start the bullet, get some beneath the bullet, and then that's pretty much it. I can kind of push it with my finger, get it a tiny bit started, but now we need something to start it in the barrel. So they actually make these things called starters. It's a ball with a little brass punch on it, kind of, and you just use your whole hand force to get the ball started, and then you're going to tap it with the longer part to get it the rest of the way in the barrel. Now the ball is in. Now, this is the part where it gets tricky. Make sure that the barrel is not pointing at your face. Wear safety glasses, wear ear protection, all that stuff. You need to get the bullet all the way down. You need to make sure it's flush and the powder's compressed. Now, there's a couple different theories on this, and one is you should like shove it down and be very gentle. I like to kind of push it a little bit. Once it gets down to about here, I'll kind of pick the rod up and just throw it down a little bit, make sure everything's seated, and then double check. But some people feel that it could go off doing this, so always make sure you're not pointing at your face. So once you know where your charge with your bullet sits, mark your rod so you know when it's seated. Now you're going to put your ramrod back in place. Now we need to put our cap on. Pull the action open, pull the bolt open, put it on safe. That's very important. Now they actually include this little tool with the gun, and that kind of slides in there, lets you put a cap on. So now we're loaded, we're ready to shoot, and we can shoot it at the range and we'll see what happens. Once you've fired the gun, you're going to reverse the tool, pop your cap out, drop the spent one, and then you can repeat the process. I'm not going to go through it all over again. I'll just reload it and we'll show a couple more rounds downrange. So I moved the camera a little bit. We're going to try and slow it down. It's hotter than hell today. It's been kind of shitty filming. I mean, I love shooting guns. I like making videos, but it is hot today. So in an effort to cool things down, I've got 3 cans of spray snow left over from the Christmas clearance season. I've got them lined up dead on, so hopefully I can hit all 3. We'll see if I can hit one of them, you know, but we'll see what it looks like. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're like, well, you got the gun for 70 bucks. You got the powder on clearance. You got the accessories cheap. I mean, I probably only have, counting the bullet mold and everything, 120, 130 bucks and everything. And like I said, if you guys have a Gander Mountain nearby, they should be like 60% off now. They had a kit with everything in it but the powder. Or no, I think it even had pelletized powder. It was on clearance. Now it's 60% off. It was like 100 bucks for a $300 kit. It was a really good deal. So if you're interested, you know, do check your local Gander, because now's the best time I've ever seen to buy black powder stuff. Big drawback with this really cheap gun is it is a bitch to clean. And with black powder, everything is corrosive. So to clean this particular gun, you actually need to take the action out of the stock. So on this particular gun, there's 2 screws here that you have to take out to disassemble it. You have to pull the rod, and then the action should kind of just fall out of the stock. Now, there's some small parts in here, so do be careful when you take this apart. Keep some tension on this rear bolt plug, whatever the hell you want to call it. There's a spring in there. Once you get the tension off, you've got your cap, you've got your spring. The spring holds the bolt handle in place. Now the bolt can pull out. Now our bolt is free. As you can see, the bolt face is kind of nasty. There's kind of a trick to cleaning these, and that is water. Some guys use Windex, some guys use ammonia. There's all kinds of different things you can use, but really the trick is that the corrosive salts don't dissolve with gun cleaning oil. Take a pile of table salt, pour it on your table on a plate, and then pour some Crisco or whatever, you know, whatever oil you have, olive oil, whatever you want to put there. The salt doesn't go anywhere. It just sits in the oil. It's kind of the same thing with a black powder rifle or any black powder gun. The salts don't go anywhere unless you break them up with water and flush them out. So, as I said, this thing is kind of a pain. You need a tool to get it apart, and it comes with the tool, but you just put it in here, and of course it sees tight. Always use grease, but even then, if you shoot, you'll still get some seizing on the threads, and you do want to snug it up tight too, so it's one of those, sometimes a little hard to get out. So now we have our plug out. Some of the higher end models, back to this one being kind of crappy, higher end ones have plugs that you can take out by hand. Some of them are set up like a shotgun where they're like a brake action, so you don't have to put a lot of effort into getting them apart. So now we have our breech plug out, and I'm just wiping all the fouling off the breech plug. And you can see it's got some nastiness there. Now what I like to do, I like to run a patch through on my rod, and there's actually a little extension that screws into the rod to give you a little extra reach. And I'm just going to run a patch with some spit on it through, just to get the loose fouling and crud out before I flush it with water. So as you can see, that patch just took all that nasty fouling right out. And it's actually caked down. There's a ton more in there. So you can run through a couple of spit patches if you want, just to get as much fouling out before you even start cleaning. And real quick, scrub it with this scrub brush. And I'm actually going to go in from the muzzle end, because then I have better reach. Okay, so now we've run a brush through, we've run some patches through. Now we got to do something to get those salts out. Once you get the salts and the corrosive shit out, you can just clean it with like hops or whatever you want to get the lead or any residue that's out. But to get that salt out, we need some water. And the easiest thing to do is use very hot water, so it does the cleaning for you. And so what I did is I put some water in the microwave. So I've got my barrel here. Don't do this if you are on like white concrete or something. But I usually run it off the edge of the deck, but it'll be hard to film off the edge of the deck. So you'll want to hold your barrel or set it in something. Some guys will put it in a bucket so they can run a brush in and out. In this case, we're just going to set it on the porch here. And then you're just going to gently pour as much hot water. This just came out of the microwave and it was boiling when I took it out. Just down the barrel. It's boiling hot, so spilling it on the gun isn't going to hurt anything because it's hot enough that it will just evaporate. And that will wash all that crud right out of the barrel. So now all the corrosive shit should be out. So we just need to run some clean patches through to make sure that it's all clean. And the gun is going to be very hot, so if you're working somewhere and you're afraid you might drop it or something, do wear gloves because, like I said, very, very hot. You can see just a little bit of brushing and some hot water, and this is all that's coming out of that barrel. It's just, you know, a tiny bit of fouling, probably out of the rifling, and it's probably lead at this point. So now you can clean it just like any other gun, where you're just going to run some hops or whatever solvent you want down the barrel, just to make sure that it's clean. And I like to use hops because it'll protect the barrel from rust and stuff. And I would wipe down the whole gun itself with some oil just to make sure that any water that might have got trapped anywhere is flushed out. And then you'll just put it back together the same way. I'm not going to bore you with those details. So after flushing it with hot water and patching it, I ran through some hops, solvent, and patched it. To put it back together, you do need to make sure that you always grease the breech plug. I don't care what grease you use. I mean, there's specific anti-seize stuff that is the recommended grease. But you do want to make sure you grease it with something. I'm just using the grease that I use on pretty much all my gun projects because I have it on hand. So if you don't grease that, you're going to have gas leakage, and you'll also have the plug stick next time you want to take the gun apart to clean it. So since I've got water everywhere, it's all dried off pretty much, but I like to just put some light gun oil everywhere on the gun before I put it back in the stock and kind of just rub it all over with my hands. I would rather the gun have some goo inside the stock that might leak out while it's in storage and have some water that causes it to rust while it's in storage. So, and that might just be me being anal. If you don't want to do that, I understand why, but especially since it's not in a wooden stock, it shouldn't hurt anything to have a little extra oil in there. So I hope you enjoyed this crash course in cheap-ass inline black powder shooting. Like I said, there's some really good deals out there on black powder shit at Gander Mountain. So if you have one in your area that's going out of business, check them out for 70 bucks. This is a decent rifle. I mean, I probably have 120 and everything. Big issues, like I said, it's bitch to get apart to clean. The sights, this rear sight likes to move, like it's not very well staked on the ramp. I've tried tightening the screw all the way. It's not going any tighter, but it is loose. Maybe I can make a spacer or something. And then the fiber optic in the front is loose. So under recoil, it likes to slide around. I need to just glue that in place. But if you liked the video, click like. If you didn't, click dislike. That's up to you. If you got any questions or comments, make sure you leave me a comment. If you want to see more videos like this, click subscribe. For Gun&ShotTV, this is Chris. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.